I'm fascinated by the fact that college players can now make a little bit of money to stay in school. How has that affected things? Because I look at this board, I look at the top 30 players that are going to be picked tonight, and I see some names missing from some of the best players in college basketball last season. A lot of them being big men. And I think that might say something about where the two sports are going. The NBA going away from a traditional post man, college maybe going toward the best asset being a guy who might stay 4 years and be an All-American like the National Player of the Year, Oscar Tshiebwe was last season. But then there's the NIL factor as well. Rob, when you look at the names that are missing from tonight, what do you think the biggest factor is to guys like Armando Bacot returning to school for another season?
Well, it's NIL money. They can make more money playing college basketball than they can playing professional basketball right now, right? Like Hunter is going to make about $1 million this year, probably, right? Do you think he's going to be able to make $1 million playing in the NBA? What he would have to do is get a guaranteed 1-year contract, right? A two-way will pay out. If you make all the money from a two-way, you're going to get just under $500K this year. So he would have to be able to match what he's making at Michigan this year. He would have to be able to get a guaranteed 1-year contract at the rookie minimum. Do you think he's going to be able to do that? He'd probably need to be about a top 45 pick in this year's draft. And I don't think that he'd be a top 45 pick in this year's draft because he's not going to do all the things you need big guys to do, right? At least not at the level that you need in a league where Hunter Dickinsons are kind of a dime a dozen, right? There's lots of really, really good big guys that are playing in the G League and that are playing overseas because they don't fit the modern NBA. And it's great for college basketball. And if that means that the sport in college is different than what it is at the NBA level, whatever, man. The NBA is the best that you're ever going to find for these sports. And it's great for college hoops because we have big names like Drew Timme and Oscar Tshiebwe and Armando Bacot and Hunter Dickinson and Trace Jackson Davis. And I'm probably missing like 3 or 4 more guys off the top of my head that are coming back to school. It's great for college basketball. And look, I would love it if some of these point guards would come back and try to capitalize, get $2 million, whatever it is for NIL money to be able to stay in college for a year. But hey, if you're going to be able to go get a guaranteed first round deal, go get a guaranteed first round deal. But I don't know how you guys feel, TORC. I think this is great for the sport.
Yeah, I think it's good. But even to kind of expand on your point, who's one of the best post players in the country this year, or best passing post players in the country this year is probably not going to get drafted. Travion Williams from Purdue. And he's going to end up being, I almost hate to say this, but RC, you played overseas for a few years. I played overseas. Like that dude overseas is going to be so much fun to watch, and we're just not going to be able to watch him because the style is so significantly different than the NBA. But if you look at some of these bigger guys, like they just don't fit because the NBA is so fast right now. Because all the wings, dribble, pass, and shoot. Vicente said it must have said it 1,000 times about 50 different prospects. If the guy can dribble, pass, and shoot at about 6'7", 6'8", like there's a lot of value in that, and that takes away a lot of these 7-footers because they're so slow of foot. They struggle to guard. Drop coverage has kind of started to. Teams are starting to figure it out, especially some of these point guards who are really elite. They're able to knock out this drop coverage, so it changes things a little bit.
Yeah, here's the biggest thing with it, right? The issue is not winning games. You can win games in the regular season with big guys. We've seen Nikola Jokic do it. We've seen Joel Embiid do it. We've seen Rudy Gobert do it. We've seen all of these big guys have success, even at a lower level like Boban, right? Boban has been a really effective NBA player in the minutes that he's played in certain situations. There's a job for guys like Boban. There's a job for a guy like Kofi in the NBA. The problem is once you get to the playoffs, you see these mismatches come to light, and all of a sudden Rudy Gobert, best defensive NBA center, gets played off the floor in Jazz series. It looks like they're going to blow up the Jazz because Rudy Gobert can't handle winning a series, right? Joel Embiid, how far has he made it in the playoffs? Nikola Jokic, I know he's dealt with injuries and stuff, and hopefully next year they can prove us wrong. But RC, how far has he made it in the playoffs? He's not winning. He's not winning NBA titles.
That's the problem with all those guys. And it's like we just watched that in the finals. And I was talking to some friends before the finals started. My wife actually got mad at me because I was like, this finals is going to boil down to it's going to be Steph and a ball screen with pick your big with Boston. And they're going to be in drop coverage. And if they switch, they can't guard it. And that's going to be your series. And the problem with all those guys we named is great for college basketball. They all need to stay because at some point they're going to go on and make money. But all of those guys have limitations and, athletically in the NBA. And it's going to, there's certain jobs for them. Like they're going to need teams will want a big to be able to say, hey, you know what? We need some size to guard Joel Embiid. We need some size. The problem they don't realize is how well Joel moves. And he's still going to be bigger and stronger than any of these guys. They made the right decision. Financially, they got a lot of money coming their way. And in college basketball, it'll be great for it. But those guys came out this year. They wouldn't have been picked on the NBA roster. They'd have been going to Europe at best.
Yeah, it's fascinating for me with the two quote unquote best bigs in this draft. It's going to be very interesting to watch where they land tonight. And I mean, Jalen Duren, I mean, Mark Williams, two guys who are more traditional post players who you've heard rumors they might slip into the mid to late lottery, when I think at least a year ago, people expected Jalen Duren, especially, to maybe work his way up near the top 5. The value of the center certainly changing.